Hey guys, and welcome back to another LeetCode 75 challenge. Today's problem is string compression, our last one in the arrays section, and then we'll move on to 2 pointers. So this one's another medium array problem. Basically, we're given a an array of any number of characters, potentially repeating characters. So what we want to do is, for all the consecutive repeating characters, we just want to count them and then just write down how many occurrences there are, right? So for this array, we'll just convert this to, there's two ways. So we'll say A, and then the next character will be how many occurrences there are. So A2, and then B2, and then C3. And then we'll ignore that. So we'll just end here, and then we'll return the length of our new array. And we're going to be manipulating the array itself here, right? So we'll just, on the fly, we'll be manipulating this, and then wherever we end off, we'll return the length of that. So this will be 6, and this will be the new array, so A2, B2, C3. For example 2, there is no modification required because there's only one character, no repeating, so we'll just return length 1, and it'll just be the array itself. For example 3, here's where it gets a little interesting. So for something like this, there's only one A, right? So we just keep it the same. And then as soon as we see repeating characters, for example 12 B's, we'll just write B, and then right after that we'll write 12, except for each digit we'll place it separately in the array, right? So it'll be 1, 2. And then we'll just return, so that's where the string compression will end, so we'll just return 4. It'll just be AB, 1, 2 as the manipulated characters array. It gets a little confusing when you start writing the logic, but I will do my best to make it simpler for you guys. Alright, so basically what we're going to be doing is using 2 pointers, current index and I, which is going to be what we're going to use to count the occurrences, and we'll initialize both of these to 0. Actually, I'll write down an example here as well, so it helps to visualize it. So for example, if there was 1 A and then 4 B's and then a C, now it'll help like initialize or visualize what we're doing. So C is going to be our current index. I is going to be our index we're going to be using to increment through and read all the occurrences, right? So our main loop guard will be while I is less than the length of chars. What we want to do is start counting the occurrences. So initially it'll be 0, and then we'll say while characters at I equal characters at C, right? If that's the case, we just increment I and increment our occurrences. So whenever you do this, one thing to note is that you might run into an array out of bounds exception, because we're checking for characters at I, and then we keep incrementing I. So there's a point where it might go out of bounds. So we have to make sure I is less than the length of chars, and then it's the same as the current index, the current character, basically. So as soon as we finish with this loop, we know that we're on to a next character. So for example, in this example, what it'll be is, because we initialize them to 0, 0, of course the first character, of course it'll be less than the length, right, because it's 0, and of course 0 and 0, they'll be the exact same, right? So I will move on to here, and then occurrence will be 1, and then of course this time it's different, so we will be done at this point. So now what we have to do is basically just write down the occurrence, right? And if occurrence is 1, then we don't do anything. So let's move on to this example. So now imagine C and I were here, right? So then we're back in this loop, and then we're going to increment I to here because they're the same, increment I to 2, and then keep doing it to 2, 3, then 4. Then as soon as I gets here, then we know there's 4 occurrences of B, and now they're no longer the same, so now we're here. So at this point, what we want to do is, if occurrences is greater than 1, then we want to write down what the amount of occurrences is in C. But of course you want to move C here so we don't overwrite the character, right? So we'll increment C by 1 first. C plus equal to 1. And then if occurrence is greater than 1, then we just write down how much it is. So now the caveat is for each digit in the number, if it's more than one digit, we want to write down in a separate index. So what we'll do is for digit in, and we'll convert the occurrences to a string. And then just at the current index, just write down the digit there and increment C. So for example here, I'll just put 4 here and C will increment to this position. And so now what we have to do, as soon as we're done writing down the occurrences, what we have to do is basically delete these extra characters, right? Because you want C to be in this position and then we'll return 4. So that's pretty straightforward as well. We'll say while C is less than I. So we just want to basically bring them together because I is going to be at the next character. So we just want to do that. So I and C will be together. So while C is less than I, we'll just pop the index C and we'll decrement I. Because C is not going anywhere because we're popping, we're basically popping this index, right? So C will still remain here. It's not going to go back, right? It's not going to move forward. I has to start moving backwards. So we'll just say I minus equal to 1. And that should be it. And then we'll just return C because that's our current index. And let's just get rid of this now. And we'll just go ahead and submit that. There we go. Accepted. Best solution. Awesome. There you guys have it. See you in the next one.